and welcome to Inside the NAL. I'm your host, Jess Brohard, and I am joined by the following three amazing people. We have Veli, Stokes, and Blue. How are you three doing
I'm feeling
tonight?
great. We had a great week of games, and for our first week in this new era of Rainbow Six Siege, we had nothing but bangers. We almost had an amazing upset even with Disrupt Gaming, but you'll hear more about that.
I think we had quite a few very close matches, in fact. I would say that a lot of our underdogs this week had a really fantastic week, and thankfully we'll get the chance to talk about more of that in just a little bit.
I have to echo what both of them said. Every single game was an absolute banger this week. There's nowhere to be disappointed.
Well, now might be a good time to tell you exactly what is Inside the NAL. Well, it is a weekly recap show where we're going to be bringing you all of the action that you hopefully did not miss during the broadcast, but basically it's all of the action outside of the actual broadcast. So we're going to be covering the Challenger League, we're going to be covering the US division and the Canada division. We'll be bringing you highlights from these matches, maybe even some interviews with a player or two, standings, get into some discussion, and all that good stuff. So to open it up, let's kind of dip a little bit further into what the three of you were talking about before. Let's talk about what stood out. What was the theme for you from this week of US division matches?
I think the theme overall, at least to start things off here, was the surprises. In quite a few of our matches, we had, the analysts and the casters, myself included, had written off quite a few of some of these underdog teams, expecting them to be very quick affairs, when in a lot of cases that turned out not to be what ended up happening. The Dark Zero game, for instance, I had that written down as a very quick 2-0. A straightforward match for them when you consider that Sonics was playing with two subs in that matchup. But despite that, they were able to take it the full distance onto all three maps. I think that unfortunately their stamina didn't last them too well on map number 3, but in the first two maps, man, they kept it very close the entire time. And that wasn't the only match that had those sorts of circumstances. We had plenty more like that.
Yeah, just like not Dark Zero, but Disrupt to start play day 2 was very impressive as well. Those underdog stories really shining through this week.
And speaking of underdogs, and inside the NAL, we're talking about Challenger League, Canadian League. A lot of people that stood out this week alone came up from Challenger League. Like Chala, you had the young gunners like Iconic and Lags. So you got to look at the Tier 2, Tier 3 scenes as well.
Exactly, and I'm glad you bring up that point, Veli, because that is the next thing I did want to talk about is what is the Challenger League? Well, it's kind of the lower tier of gameplay. I would argue it's sort of a path to the Pro League for any aspiring players out there who are not quite ready to dive into the Pro League yet. You can definitely join the Challenger League. Is that about right as the characterization, would you guys say?
Yeah, basically one step below Pro League, the step before Pro League, and in this case, the North American.
Yeah, it's the minor leagues of the major league. It's going to be the place where you find a lot of the newer talent coming to play and playing off against newer talent that is trying to make it up to the pro scene as well. It's that training ground for them to try and see if they can show some merit that catches the eye of a Pro League team.
And I don't want to make it sound like we talk down upon these guys because they're in Tier 2 and Tier 3, because we know there's some absolute gunners over there, and plus, that's where you find your new talent for Tier 1. So I'm really interested and excited to see how CL is going to turn out.
So in particular, let's talk about some of those young gunners and some of those teams. Let's talk about Spiker versus PogChamp. That is going to be the Challenger League matchup that we're going to see on Friday after the Canada division matches. So Spiker and PogChamp, what's going on here? What can you guys tell me about these two teams?
Well, I'm going to be quite honest. I don't know too much about Spiker, but we're going to find out soon. Okay. But PogChamp, I can reassure you, these guys are out of control. Looking at the lineup, Trippin, Sweater, Jarvis, Prod, and Ghost. You're looking at ex-pro players fighting their way back up to get into the NA League. So, me personally, looking at the lineup in general for all of CL, you have some teams that are actually Pro League level. So, PogChamp is going to lead the way against Spiker. And, hopefully the guys on Spiker is just as good as well.
Yeah, I would completely agree with you on that, but I will say that this is the week of the underdogs. I wouldn't count Spiker out just yet. There isn't too much VOD on them from what I've been able to find for that squad, so they always have the unpredictability factor working in their favor as well. But as you were saying, I think that PogChamp is going to be one of the best teams inside of CL this season, especially with Jarvis on the lineup. I think he proved on TSM, even though whatever it came down to for him to be dropped, he was still an elite player when it came to game day.
And even away from that match specifically, there's still quite a bit of competition amongst some of these other teams in CL. This could actually be a pretty interesting season when you look at players from Pro League that are now in CL for this season, and other, players that are a little bit more well-known coming up. You've got The Last Dance, for instance, which has Young and Spades on it, along with Acid and a few other players who the community might be aware of. Rent Free is in the pool as well, with Thomas, Rex, and Filthy, and Drip. And you've got another team that just got picked up by Beast Coast as well, and that's going to be Fozo, Rudy, Jay, Anthony, and Sippin. So I think that there's a lot of really cool competition. That's not even all of it, too. There's a few more teams besides that as well. So this is looking like a pretty interesting season of CL.
And actually, by the way, before I'm sorry, Jess jumped in.
Go for it.
Jarvis, the last event he ever went to, he won it against professional teams. So this just shows you the level of competition that's rising in the NA.
That is awesome. Well, thank you for that additional insight, Veli, because like you guys have said, it seems to be the season of the underdog, so there is always that angle. But then, like you guys said, PogChamp, we have some kind of former pros, and that veteran status is something that sometimes can give you exactly that edge that you need. But only time will tell what is going to happen in Spiker versus PogChamp. Let's go ahead and move on and look at Canada, our neighbors to the north, and see what's going on with the Canada division. I know we've been talking a little bit, and we've have some kind of differing levels of familiarity with these four teams. It looks like we've got Mirage, the North, Squires, and Nordic. Where do you guys want to start?
I think it's fair that Sam Stokes introduces a star player in the Canadian League.
All right. Let's just get this out of the
guy.
way. Let's just get this out of the way. It's got to be the B-Leaguer duo. Flynn has made his way to the professional scene inside of Canada. Tip of the cap to that man. He's been working his absolute butt off to get there, and he's in good company as well with Not Loading and players like Silent and up and coming wow.
Take your time.
I'm falling apart, guys. It's been a long day. All right. Okay. Anyways,
it's been a lot of
gunner inside of Canada that's actually been getting his notability out there, especially from this Mirage squad. They've been scrimming quite often. Flynn says that the team looks elite. I'm excited to see them.
And away from Flynn's team on Mirage, a lot of these players are stepping up to the plate, at least for me personally, for the first time. So this is a situation where I kind of want to sit back, relax, watch the first week or two of play before I make any harsh or good judgments on these teams, just because a lot of them are newer players like that we haven't necessarily seen in PL or CL previously in the old system. So we're going to have to see what exactly they can bring to the table over these first couple of weeks.
I think ultimately the name of the game is notoriety. Being in the Canadian League, there's only a small amount of teams, so it gives you a better chance to really stand out, be the best you can be. And not only that, but with the new system we have in place in all the regions out there, you can accumulate enough points to go to the biggest tournaments out there that Rainbow Six Siege can offer. So I really hope that every team in this Canadian division, they go lights out and really be the best version of themselves.
A lot of talent to watch out for sure, but we are going to see Nordic versus Mirage on Friday for the Canada division. Let's move on. Let's talk about US, these matches that we have already been seeing. Let's start off with the kind of most recent, the freshest in our minds, which is from the second day of play this week. We had Oxygen versus Disrupt, and we had the Susquehanna Sonics versus Dark Zero. A lot going on with these matches. Let's start with Oxygen versus Disrupt. This was a 2-1 in favor of Oxygen.
So, my USN boys, listen.
Let's address the elephant in the room.
Let's go. So, basically, Disrupt Gaming, not a lot of people thought that they would have been as good as they were, but they were better than that, plus more. But the only thing that stopped them was themselves. They were using a banned uniform, and that took away so many rounds of momentum from these guys starting from map 1.
4 times it happened, unfortunately, as well. Now, to be fair, the player that was affected by this issue did come out and explain it and had a pretty valid reason for why it was going on. So we're going to hope that that doesn't repeat itself in the future. But away from that, like I said, just the kind of the elephant in the room, getting that one out of the way. Aside from that, as Veli was mentioning, DG still did an incredibly good job in their opening match, especially going up against OXG and the reputation that that team has.
Yeah, Playdate 2 was a lot of fresh blood coming into play, and I think specifically NJR and Iconic blew all expectations out of the water. Specifically Iconic for me, he made so many good plays inside of that Dark Zero series. It does kind of suck to see it all go for naught since they did end up losing that series. But NJR as well, again, extremely impressive, especially on Jackal. Using the PDW, we don't see that too often when it comes to Jackal play.
You know what?
And the big thing with Iconic's performance specifically is he's making really smart plays, really experienced plays for a player that's just now kind of coming up into this level of play. Specifically, I would call back to his 1v2 clutch that he managed to pull off on Consulate in the first map there, where he was able to do, some fantastic work. He reads into the situation that, okay, if I try to take this direct 1v2, it's not going to be a good fight. Instead, he uses the remaining impact nade he has, goes for the rotate, causes a split amongst the two remaining players, and is able to line up a position to pick off the last one he needed to kill and send the round to a win on the timer.
Kind of like how Iconic showed off his IQ against Dark Zero, one of the smartest teams, if not the smartest team in all of NA. This NJR, he had his own showing against some of the best fraggers in all of NA. When you go against a team like Oxygen, where you have Vertical, Laxing, and Foxay, you have to bring your A game. It's going to take more than just mechanical skill to beat them. But you know what? For NJR, that was enough for him. Him roaming around, you saw him on Jack or the PDW, that man could do it all. And if you can go toe-to-toe against players like Laxing and Foxay, you got nothing but respect in my book.
All right, well, let's dig into the memory banks just a little bit. Go back a few days to the first day of play for this week, where we saw TSM 2-0 Tempo Storm, and we saw SSG 2-0 E United. But as we all know, the story that final scoreline tells is not always necessarily the story that the matches in each map tells. So what is the story that you guys want to tell me about these two matchups?
So ultimately, like you said, Jess, the score really doesn't tell the full story, right? Take a look at Tempo Storm, and you're going to have to give a lot of respect as well to Tempo Storm. This is a team that chose the best team in their respective group for their first game. Now, everyone out there said, hey, you know what? They're going to get clapped up. They have no chance. They don't stand a chance against TSM. But little did we know, even me, they proved me wrong. Tempo Storm actually did have a fighting chance, and all thanks to Dream and just the team as a whole. I really love the addition of Mark the Shark, and they almost came close to beating him, but they fell short, and now they're going to have to go against the Susquehanna Sonics, which is a matchup that we all want to see.
I think the thing for me with those Monday games is with SSG, it's exactly what we expected. They're firing on all cylinders. They're playing their game. Good intel, droning, Rampy frying everybody. What else did you expect from the SSG? But when it came to the Tempo game, that was a whole different story. Sloppy and Mark, as Billy was just saying, the outliers there. Sloppy specifically for me, blowing my expectations out of the water for him, especially on that day. And Tempo overall playing so damn well, even though it was a 2-0. If you guys haven't seen the game, make sure you go back and watch it.
Yeah, and I mean, my sentiments are pretty much exactly the same. We had great stand-up performances from the players on Tempo. Talking a little bit about TSM for a little bit here, too, I noticed a few players that were outlying a little bit where we normally see them perform pretty well, but weren't necessarily doing so in that match. Like Geo, for instance, didn't necessarily seem as comfortable in his position as he had been in the past, only managing to pull together a 0.56 KPR in the matchup versus Tempo Storm. On the opposite side of the coin, as Stokes is just saying, you had individuals like Sloppy, who are really showing up to the table for the first time on the team there, and an official anyway, really blowing the expectations out of the water and having a fantastic first show.
I'm actually going to have to give a small shout out because we really didn't expect it. Now on TSM, we all know who our favorite is on that roster, and it's the one and only Pojo Man. Pojo Man is not a player on TSM anymore. He's a coach. Chala came up from PogChamp to take his role. And or take his spot, excuse me. And Chala was lights out, arguably the best player in the first week of all the NA games. And I want to take hats off to him. I really hope TSM, they mesh well with this lineup. They have a chance to be the best in the world because as far as we know it, only Space Station Gaming are in front of them.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. I just think that a little bit longer period of time to work with Chala. Again, when it came to the game on Monday for them, I feel like there was still some times where they were disoriented, but overall, amazing showing from them and an amazing showing from Chala. I think that it's just going to get better from here. If they're playing this well now, I want to see them in 3 months.
Oh, yeah.
Well, speaking of players that we want to kind of highlight or give a shout out to, we do have an interview ready for you with Canadian. Now, we tried to grab this interview on Monday while he was actually playing those matches, but there were a few audio issues. We were able to finally get that, so take a look at Jackie Jing interviewing Canadian.
Hey everyone, I'm Jackie Jing with Canadian, hot off a win against E United. Thank you so much for joining us, Canadian.
Oh, thanks for having me.
And E United, they put up a decent fight, but man, Bosco and Thinking Nate, they came out huge. I really want to talk to you about your team's chemistry and how your dynamic has evolved and your team's growth moving into this new season.
I don't know if the growth is noticeable yet. I do think we've grown and changed a lot. I think that's just partially because we're playing into a new meta. I think the chemistry's always been there. We've always had really good communication, especially in match scenarios. So, I mean, yesterday we were playing well, so it really showed.
Just something really great about your team is that you have such a collection of exceptional players, and it seems like any of you can step up at any time. Would you agree with that?
I mean, yeah, definitely. Everyone on this team can show up. It's part of why we're so scary.
Definitely a blessing. Talk to me about how you deal with the pressure of defending your position as the best in the NA and the best in the world. I can only imagine.
It doesn't feel like anything's changed in that regard. Obviously, people are looking at us differently, and we have to take into account how other teams will treat us. But I don't think the pressure from community or anything like that gets to us or anything like that.
I also really want to talk to you about the best of 3 format and your opinion on that, and maybe we can break down some pros and cons.
I don't even know if there's a con to it. It's so much better than playing best of ones, especially best of ones that you can tie in. The better team really shows through a lot more often. I mean, online isn't always ideal, but we fully intend to switch over to LAN, so whenever that's possible, that'll happen, and that'll be nice as well.
All right, and I do want to talk to you about NA and the teams that you are closely watching or preparing for. Who are you kind of keeping your eye on?
No one in particular. It's just match by match. Focus on ourselves and what we can do to improve ourselves and make sure we're playing our game. And then, whatever matches ahead of us, we'll do the necessary prep work for that, and that's about it.
I was going to say possibly TSM, because you guys kind of have this little rivalry developing between you two, but really you're just looking at it game to game then, essentially?
There is a rivalry definitely between us and TSM. I think there's one between us and Dark Zero as well, but I think that's been a thing of the past. I think people will always want to have rivalries and whatnot, but at the end of the day, teams should approach it to just whatever match is next and focus on that. And we're not going to take time out of our day to prepare specifically for TSM when we don't play TSM. There's no reason to. It's not how it works. So that's not the case. Our mentality is just whatever match is next.
It's good to know then that y'all are friends and y'all just want to win, right? That's pretty much the mindset I'm getting.
Yep.
All right, I love it. To wrap things up, what are your team goals for this season? What are you really focusing on right now?
I mean, it's literally just as simple as winning. So one match at a time, whatever it takes. And I mean, I guess qualifying for the major. Yeah.
All right. Well, wonderful victory against E United. Congratulations. And thank you so much for joining us, Canadian.
Thanks for having me.
I loved what Canadian said about, he said something about any one of us can go off, and that was what makes us so scary. Do you guys agree with that?
I wholeheartedly agree. You look at players on this roster, and they're nothing but stars. Rampy is outright, I believe, the best player in NA. Now, behind him, you also have one of the latest additions to that team, which is going to be Fultz. And you keep going down the list, and you have all these individual stars. But the thing that makes Space Station so special is that they don't believe in those type of individual plays for success. They believe in teamwork, and it's a philosophy that's helped them rise to the top.
Yeah.
They've also got a really good shoulder on their head about being the world champion. I think that Canadians' philosophy on how they're approaching matchups now that they are the world champion not necessarily approaching them differently, but looking at how teams might be treating them differently as a result of that. I think that's a really good way to approach it, and is going to be very healthy for the continuous growth of this team as they move further and further into the new system.
Yeah, it's kind of like playing King of the Hill, right? When you're on top of the hill, you got to combat to keep everybody off of it, and I think that that is the proper way to go about things. But I do have a bone to pick with you, Veli, about something that you said. You can't discount Fultz, man. Fultz has got to be the best player inside of North America. Statistically speaking, he is the best. I'm just saying, like, it's one of those guys where if you peak the angle, you already lost. You lost before you even peaked.
But you know what, Stokes? This isn't an argument, though, because the thing is, Rampy, Thinking Nate, and the rest of these players, they're okay with taking a step back and letting their stats take a hit for the team's success overall. Me, personally, I think Rampy is the most gifted, but Fultz statistically is the best, but that changes every year. But also, they are consistent, so I personally believe that Fultz and Rampy are still some of the best in NA.
That duo is insane, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's ever going to be a duo that steps up to that at the level that they've done it so far. I mean, throughout all of SI, they were there every single game, giving it to anybody that wanted it, Veli. Anybody that wanted it. If you step up to the plate, you're getting the sauce. That's how it works.
Well, let's take a look at the bracket for the US division and kind of see where things are shaking out after a couple of these 2-0s.
Yeah, it's looking really good right now. So, Space Station Gaming against Oxygen, that's going to be the most important one right now, because whoever wins this, they're going to have an undefeated record at 2-0, and they're going to be top 1 in their own group, which automatically means they're going to be in Group A, which is top 4 for all of NA automatically. Now, at the end, at the bottom, you're going to have United versus Disrupt Gaming, and hey, listen, I believe any given Sunday, Blue and Stokes.
I completely agree with you. Any given Sunday, and if you didn't think that was a true thing, look at what happened in Play Day 2. I mean, we had so many of these teams show up that shouldn't have done anything at all. And hey, if you put in the work, you got to get something out of it. So amazing showing from all of them once again. And I have to agree with you. It is any given Sunday.
Yeah, and with regards to the rest of the bracket there, I think for the most part, it's just played out the way we've expected it to so far. We've had a lot of really close matches, a lot of really surprising matches, but the upsets necessarily haven't been there too much just yet. The overall winners are still those we expected to come out at the end of the day.
Hola.
Hello?
Hello?
Jess.
And moving on to the Group B bracket.
Yeah, so the Group B bracket, to me, this one of the best ones out there for 2 reasons. We're going to have 2 heavyweights going at it with TSM and Dark Zero. TSM, they're looking to take the top spot in NA away from Dark Zero once again, but that game can go either way. But at the bottom, Blue and Stokes, this is what we always wanted to see.
Oh, absolutely. Tempo Storm versus Sonics, but specifically Crazy versus Super. After both not showing up on their respective play days, they now play against each other. If they're not the top frags on their respective teams, I don't know what's going to happen, Val. There might be a role swap. There might be something. Maybe we just need to both give them boxing gloves and they just punch it out, you know?
I'm going to tell you, Tempo against Sonics, like, nothing's better than that. Like, it goes together like milk and cookies, right? It's what we need. That's the matchup that we actually wanted for the first play day between these 2 teams, but we're going to get it anyways. And it's even better that it is going to be an elimination game.
And even for TSM versus Dark Zero, people already expect that to be a great match, but there's some great storylines leading into that one too. And you look at the first 2 matches and some of the issues and successes that have both plagued and helped both of those teams. You look at DZ, for instance, having a lot of issues just in their general play against the Sonics in their opening match, and the individual players that were having some slight comfortability issues, it seemed, on TSM. That could make for a pretty interesting matchup with both of them seemingly having some issues and having to now patch that up for a match against kind of a rival within the region.
All right, well, let's take a look at next week's schedule. Find out who is playing whom and when. Starting off on Monday, June 29th, we'll see E United play Disrupt, and then Tempo Storm will face the Sonics. On Wednesday, July 1st, we've got Space Station Gaming versus Oxygen, and TSM versus Dark Zero. And then Friday, July 3rd, we'll watch the North versus Squires. And then, of course, a little later on, we will have to see what that matchup becomes. Which matches are you guys excited for?
Me personally, I know it's weird. Yes, TSM versus Dark Zero. That's going to be the ultimate favorite for everyone out there. I want to see United versus Disrupt. I have a thing with both of these teams. I really feel like we haven't even seen half of what United can offer. And also, Disrupt Gaming. We have yet to see them play a full series without rehosts or banned skins or whatnot. I want to see this team with their head on straight play a full series and go all out. I think both of these teams have potential to be they can be way better than what they were last season. I don't believe that they can be top 2 in this scene, but I believe they can upset some of the upper echelon rosters out there, and that's what I'm excited for.
I'm going to have to go against the grain here, especially with the E United talk here. I tilt a little bit more in the favor of Disrupt. I think NJR is just going to chew him up, Veli. That man was gunning every single person in the world, all because he just had more bullets in them. It's not like the PDW is an amazing gun. It just has a 50-round mag capacity, and he just decided to put it on everybody and murder them. I don't see them standing up to it, especially after that play. Unless Alfama just goes Super Saiyan, I don't see it.
So are you saying that this will or will not be a good game?
It's not going to be a good game.
What? You think it's going to be a blowout?
I think it's going to be a blowout.
I'm going to let you know now. Yeti and my French fry Alfama, they're going to tear him up. And you know what? We can bet on it, Sam. Just let me know, all right?
Okay, all right. I'm not saying that Yeti's not my boy. Yeti's still my boy. But, like,
okay.
the thing is I don't know how E United plays to disrupt the process of Disrupt.
All right. Blue, I know I always go with the underdogs, but also the Titans, TSM and Dark Zero, man. If you really looked at that game and had to like predict who's going to come out on top, I mean, it's anybody's game. What do you think the turnout's going to be?
I mean, right now, I would probably, just going off of the matches that we had seen recently, I would have to go with TSM personally. Dark Zero looked a little bit sloppy in certain areas tonight. It's hard to tell if that was because they might have been underestimating the potential of Sonics with 2 fill-ins, but at the same time, they might have been playing themselves a little bit. The issues from TSM seem to be more just like certain people in awkward positions, or maybe, you know, they're just kind of figuring out some stuff with the new roster at the last moment. So I think that their issues are going to be fixed a lot more easily than DZ, so I'd say that they have to take that one. But even away from that match, I'm really excited for all of the games next week. We gotta have the opposite situation of the games from week number 1, where it seemed like almost a lot of the games were mismatches. I kind of expect most of these games next week in the NA League to be very, very close, and I'm very excited for the prospects of what that will bring.
Well, if you want to make sure to catch all of the action and not miss a single thing, be sure to follow along on Twitter at R6esportsNA, and that way you will never miss a match or a broadcast. But I believe this draws our show to a close. Do any of you have any final thoughts before we leave our audience for the week?
Veli's the best looking dude I've ever seen in my life. That's all I gotta say.
Sam,
what?
Ain't that the truth?
Sam, if
up?
Corona wasn't running rampant right now and we were in Vegas together at the LAN League, I would actually kiss you in the face right now, okay? Thank you.
I'll keep you to it. Don't worry about it.
Beautiful closing thoughts. All right, well, thank you everyone so much for watching. This has been Inside the NAL, and we'll see you next week.